listening.
Yeah.
We can do our little intro here.
Perfect.
I'd love for you to introduce yourself, though, because
Okay.
there's just no one better than you to introduce.
I feel like there's so many ways I could take this. Hi, I'm Janae. Janae Pettit. I guess I should use my whole name. I am just a human.
One of the best, though.
Oh, thank you. I have a whole lot of different stories I could tell. I have a whole lot of different life experiences that I've, been through. I would say at my core, I am a rebellious soul, which will come out in some things I'll probably share later. But also I'm a wife, mom to 3 boys and a dog, and work full time. And it's been a journey to get to where I am in life now. So I don't know.
Well, I think just how we met says a lot about us individually and then why we've stayed in touch.
Yes. So when I was like 12, I had all these aspirations to be like a model. And I was like, I want a model. They look like they have so much fun.
Yeah.
And I know it's work, but like, it looks like a great thing I want to do. And then I stopped growing at 5'3", and I was like, well, that's out the window. So
the options were not as broad as they are today.
Even petite models are minimum like 5'8", maybe.
Really?
Like, yeah. So I was like, clearly that's not the career for me. But then I have always been fairly creative, and I learned to sew when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
I used to sit with my mom at her sewing machine when she'd be making Halloween costumes or clothing or mending stuff for my family. And when I was about 7, she was like, you know what? You can probably use this thing. She just turned me loose. I had dozens and dozens of tiny little pillows on my bed that I had made. Like, so many of them. I don't even know how I would sleep at night. Because I didn't want to like throw them on the floor. Anyway, so it was a whole
They were
whole
your
thing.
prized possessions that you made.
That I made. And I started realizing there's something so special about making something with your own hands that was an idea you had, or you saw fabric and you're like, oh, that would look really pretty like this. And that was the start of my like love of design. And so I'm an artist and a designer as well.
That vivid imagination was able to get you to where you wanted to
go.
So
when I was like, well, I guess modeling won't work, I was like, what if I designed the things for models to model?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of what navigated my life for quite a long time.
So what was like the first design job you did that wasn't for yourself?
Oh, gosh. I don't know if I can actually say I had a first one. I remember just having people like, oh, can you make this for me? And I'd be like, yeah, sure. And so that was always what I did. It was just like making little knickknacks basically for people.
You're just the person in the community that everyone knew. You knew how to do that.
And my family. Like I would have aunts, uncles, cousins, like roommates, friends.
Wow.
People would always just be like, oh, Janae, you're really good at this stuff. Can you make this? So that's been pretty much my whole life.
And then how did that, like, did you go to school for design then?
Yes. So, oh gosh, my academic career was a roller coaster.
As most creatives, right?
Right? So originally I was graduating high school at 18, like many of us do. And I didn't quite know what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go, but I'd applied to the local university. I grew up in Tennessee, so small town, local university there. And I didn't think much of it. I was like, whatever, I'll just go there. And my dad was a BYU graduate.
Okay.
And he was like, oh, please just apply to BYU. Like, you don't have to go, but just apply. And I was like, sure, Dad.
Yeah, no pressure.
Right. So I applied, and I got accepted, even though my GPA was lower than they usually accept. My ACT score was lower than they usually accept. Because school was not my top priority.
Yeah, no. When I asked my parents if I could go to FITM, they were like, in what world? You're not even going to high school. Prove it. Like, we're not going to pay for you to go if you're not going to go.
So anyway, so I was like, fine, I'll apply to BYU. I got accepted. And I was like, oh, crap. Now I'm going to have to go. And so I did. My dad was like, just give it one semester. And I was not on great terms with my parents at this point. So I was like, fine, see you at Christmas. And I didn't talk to him the whole semester. Didn't call him, nothing. I was I was mad. Because again, my rebellious soul,
Yeah.
I hate being told what to do or being told what I should or shouldn't do. And I always want to do the opposite.
It just pushes you
Oh, but
like a
wait.
magnet.
Oh, but wait, there's more.
Oh, no.
So I go to BYU and I was just like, I hated it. I hated everything about it. And it was, I don't know that BYU was the problem. I was definitely the problem at this point.
The two didn't mesh.
No.
That's it. Okay.
Look at me.
Not so much BYU poster child.
So, So then, like, the end of November rolls around and I'm just, like, counting down the days. Like, I can't wait to go home and just, like, go back and do whatever I want to do with my life instead of doing what my dad thinks I should do. So December starts and I went snowboarding. And then I skipped class and went snowboarding. And then Christmas rolled around and I was like, maybe I'll stay. Maybe I'll stay and I'll go snowboarding when I get back after Christmas. And so I did. I pretty much flunked my entire freshman year because I was on the mountain all the time. Every powder day, I was skipping class up on the mountain.
See ya.
Yeah. So that was why I stayed. And then I started to get my life together. Then I was like, oh, real life. That's right. I'm an adult now. I should probably figure out what I'm doing.
Maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, so then I changed my major like 9 times throughout my entire college career because I just couldn't find what I wanted.
The whole time at BYU?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The whole time. There's so much to the story. So I went to the Counseling Career Center and was, I don't know, paired up with this older gentleman. And I started talking about like, well, I'm kind of interested in like, I love art, I love design, I've done sewing, I'm interested in fashion, but I'm also interested in like engineering and like, you know, building cool stuff. And anytime I'd explain any of these interests or like what I feel like my skills were, this happened 3 times. I went different times, paired up with different gentlemen. They'd be like, oh, you should try your home and family living major. It has an emphasis in fashion design. And in my head, I'm like, where is that going to get me?
Yeah.
An emphasis? Who's going to recognize that? Like, that's not a degree. It's not the same thing.
Also, are you going to get the education you need from an emphasis?
Exactly. No. The education, the experience, the opportunity, it's not going to come. And so I was just, every time I left, I was just mad. And I was like, what if I was a man? What if I was a man telling you I was interested in art, design, and mechanical engineering? What would you tell me then? And I still don't know. I still have my suspicions of how it would have gone.
Right.
Because I grew up with all brothers. So I have a pretty good idea how things would go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was so mad. I walked out of that Counseling Career Center one day and I was just like, I'm just going to walk in the engineering building and see what they have. Because obviously they're not telling me where to go or giving me options.
Right. But also people aren't saying no yet. No. So.
But I was like, I have to find this myself.
Yeah. Good for you.
So I go in the engineering building, their main office. They have like this wall full of like all these papers that's like the course list to graduate with these different degrees. And I'm just looking and I'm like, mechanical engineering, like, sure, I could do that. But that doesn't feel quite me. Like,
yeah.
I could do well in it, but I don't know that it's speaking to me, you know? So I keep looking and I see after a while industrial design. And I was like, what is that? And I take out the paper and I look at it and like the freshman listing of classes was like creativity 101, sketching, studio. And I was like, okay, this is it.
Yeah. Why did this career advisor not know about this?
Yeah. And I was like, how come I never knew about this program before I came to college either?
Yeah.
It's existed since like the 1950s officially. And it's just such a small niche program and community of you know, professionals. I had no idea what it was.
But you were literally listing off all of those things
I was
to
like,
that advisor?
Yes. And they didn't tell me to go to it. I'm still so mad about it because I'm like, what would have happened if that had been like my second major change instead of my 9th?
Right. You really do have to be your own advocate.
Oh, this is not the first or last time that I ever learned that. Absolutely.
Won't be the last you ever will,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. So anyway, I found that major and I just fell in love. It was really rigorous. They had like 60 students apply. They had, I don't even know how many students applied, but they only accepted 60 for the freshman level courses. And then you had to apply again. And then they only accepted like 16.
So it's like just because you're in doesn't mean you're in for the whole thing.
No, you had the entry level and then you had the professional level of the program.
Wow, that's good though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. That program would create the most amazing designers and professionals. Like, phenomenal human beings, phenomenal designers and creatives.
So
it was amazing.
Did you finish out the program?
I finally did.
Oh, hell yeah.
So here's what happened.
Okay.
I found this major. I took the first semester of the freshman courses, and then I had a mental health crisis and had to drop out. It was horrible. I was so sad because I was like, I finally, after changing my major 9 times, I'd been in school for 3 years. I finally found what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it. It broke me a little bit. I still get emotional about it.
I am the exact same way.
Yeah.
I can sympathize. I don't know exactly what you were going through, but I understand needing to like take a break from life and the things that you want to do.
It was a lot.
Because you just can't get there.
Nope. It was hard.
Not to like sidetrack too much, but when you get emotional about these things that have happened in the past, because I've had people ask me, like, I'm just a very emotional person, and I remember those feelings well for the times that were really intense for me. It doesn't mean I still am harboring them or things like that. No. But when I talk about them, when I refer to them, they're such... I almost think back to myself in that moment, and I just feel so bad for her.
Oh,
that's
same.
What's bringing the emotion.
Same. Well, and I remember how meaningful those moments were to me, and that's why I feel the emotion. And I have so many things to share. I used to be like super numb and not feeling anything because I like lived through some trauma and some other crap.
So the
fact that I feel it, I'm like, no, I'm going to let myself feel it. Like, I apologize if it's like,
please don't.
If it makes me unable to speak.
No, and that's what this is
important.
For. Like, I am a crier, and I'm trying to stop apologizing.
I gotta get some tissues out here sometime.
They're right in there.
Yep. Gosh, you were prepared. Thank you, because I may need them.
They're there for you.
Okay.
But no, I think it's important to convey those feelings because I think a lot of us are just very numb.
Absolutely.
And so you're not gonna... I feel like I can connect with people so much more when I show those authentic feelings instead of like, why is she not even bothered by that rough time in her life? Like, no, I'm still very impacted.
That's why I start with saying I'm a human because I feel all the range of like being a human, all the difficulties, all the good and bad, everything.
Which I think is so brave because before we get back to you, I've been coming off of like a number for myself and I am like itching. I'm like feeling things again. I'm, like just trying to get back to like managing the emotions and feelings day to day.
Not shoving them down.
And it's hard, but you got like, I feel like I'm a toddler again, learning how to handle my emotions.
I can relate.
But anyway, you had to take a break for mental health reasons.
I took a break. I took a break. I'd gotten married, which is a whole other story. And I was just kind of devastated that I had found what I wanted to do and I couldn't do it. And I just had too many things happening. I had just started going to therapy for the first time in my life. Okay. And man, that unlocks a lot.
Yeah.
And I was like, I cannot work and do school and do therapy and be a newlywed. That's too much. There's too much happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, something has to give. And I had to prioritize what I wanted to keep doing and what was necessary. And school ended up being at the bottom. And so, anyway, so I dropped out of school and moved in with my in-laws. And that was a rough time.
Whenever I hear those stories, it's usually about the same.
So I love them, and they are so sweet, and they love me. Like when Bob and I got married, they were like teasingly, jokingly, maybe not, I don't know. They pulled me aside and were like, "If you guys ever get divorced, we're keeping you." It's like, okay, thanks.
So you were loved. You were very well loved.
So like nothing negative about them.
Yeah.
But it's just different family dynamic, different household, different than what I wanted.
Also, newlyweds living near anyone.
Yes. Yeah. So
it was not the most ideal situation.
No, not at all. It was a really hard time. And then I was pregnant and, getting ready to have my first baby, which is a whole other thing because I never wanted kids. I never wanted to get married.
Interesting. Okay.
And then I met Bob and I was like, God dang it. I freaking like him so much. Anyway.
I love that.
Yeah, I know. I know. He was the first person who ever really made me feel actually safe. Not just like physically safe, but emotionally safe. Like we started out, let me tell you our story.
Please do.
An aside here.
Please do.
My second year of college, Christmas was approaching and I had been engaged the previous year. Another reason why I flunked was my former fiance had dumped me a week before finals
Ouch.
of winter semester. So anyway, didn't go to any finals.
So you were like, I'm going to the mountain to snowboard.
Yeah, basically. I was like, peace out. I really need to snowboard today. No, and so I spent the previous New Year's Eve with him, and I was like, I don't want to even think about this dude. I don't want to think about him. I don't want to. So I was like, what do I do for Christmas break? Because I wanted to go home and see my parents for Christmas, but the New Year's Eve, like my mom and dad live out in the country on a farm. And I was like, I actually wanted to celebrate New Year's Eve, not go to bed at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, campus might be a better place.
And I was thinking, at BYU on campus, no one's there for New Year's Eve.
Oh, really?
So I was like, crap, what do I do? And then I remembered I had roommates, I had friends, I had family members in Southern California. Oh. And they all raved about this super fun, like New Year's Eve party that they always went to every year. And the year before it had been like on a yacht. And I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah, force me.
Yeah, so I flew home to Tennessee for Christmas, made my return flight to San Diego, got picked up by some friends, stayed on their couch for a while. I get there and I call my friend and I was like, hey, I'm here. Like, when are you planning on going back to BYU? Because I had arranged to get a ride back up to BYU with her. And she was like, oh, you were serious? I don't have any space in my car. I was like, well, there are worse places to be stranded, I guess. So I just couch surfed for like a week, went to this New Year's Eve party and met Bob there. He was just living in San Diego, working at an outdoor shop, like just total surfer guy. Just went surfing in the mornings, went to work.
However, you were a ski bum.
I thought it was the hottest thing.
Surf bum. Yeah. Both in their early 20s.
Yeah, I thought he was so hot. Yeah. Anyway, and so I asked my friends, I was like, tell me about this guy. And they're like, he's kind of weird. And I was like, okay, that's not a bad thing,
perfect.
Right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway, and he found out I was stranded. He's like, oh, I'll give you a ride to Utah. I've always wanted to snowboard up there. And I was like, sweet.
Both just kind of like YOLO type of people, too. I love that.
So that's how we met. It was like a 12-hour, 11-hour road trip.
I was going to say, so then you decided you either liked each other or you didn't.
Well, luckily he wasn't a serial killer or a rapist, so
At
things
least.
Worked out. I don't recommend going on road trips with strangers usually, but
you had people who could like vouch for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though he was a little weird.
Yeah, and he is a little weird, but so am I. So our weird goes together great.
Yeah, weird is good.
It is good
in most ways.
I agree.
Yeah.
Same. So anyway, that was how he and I met. So anyway, we were living with his parents, and I was pregnant, and had the baby, and then a few months after having the baby, I was just depressed. I was miserable. I had never had aspirations to be a stay-at-home mom, and that's what I was doing. And Bob was working. He was miserable and depressed because he had no idea what he wanted to do for a career. And I looked at him one day. I was like, Bob, I regret not finishing that degree that I found at BYU. Like, I want a career. And he was like, really? Because I don't. And I was like, I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. He was like, dude, I would love to stay home with the kids. I was like, what are we doing? So we totally just like swapped and we figured it all out. I went back to BYU. I finished my degree. It took me 7.5 years total of school, 12 years from when I started school to when I graduated. But I did it. And I'm dang proud of it.
Yeah.
So proud of it. And the fun thing was my professors in that program remembered me and just let me right back in.
Good.
Like I applied, I didn't even have to reapply to the freshman level. I took like one semester of that just to like kind of catch up. And then I applied to the professional level and they accepted me. And I was like, dude, I didn't know if they would. I was one of the older kids in the program.
Yeah.
I was a non-traditional student.
But at the same time, I think it's sometimes for me hard to remember that like professors and things like that are also human.
Oh, yeah.
And
they were great.
If you're honest and do it in a good way, there's always room for
Well, clearly they saw something in me that they wanted to like see through the program.
Yeah, totally.
And they're great guys. Love them. Like there are 4 main teachers in that program and they were all just phenomenal. Good. I can't speak enough good about them. So, and I still get to see them because there's a senior showcase. So all the graduating seniors always have like their final project that they showcase every year.
That's so fun. Do you go to that each year then?
Oh yeah. It's like a little reunion for everybody.
Yeah.
So you'll see people from all different years and it's so fun. And it's a great way to like meet the new talent coming out and just be inspired by all the cool stuff that they're doing.
I was going to say, have you hired any alumni or not
yet? Not yet.
Haven't found the right fit yet.
No, but I have some friends that I've wanted to hire so bad, and one of my friends, I put them on a roller coaster, and I feel so bad because we were hiring and then we weren't, and then there was a hiring freeze, and anyways, this whole thing, and I'm like,
it's been a wild 5 years.
Oh my gosh, it's been nuts
for businesses.
It's been absolutely crazy.
Can we talk about what you do?
Yeah.
I love the company you work for, even though I've honestly never tried any of the products personally.
Go to a showroom and try them. They're so
need
good.
to. But you guys are doing such a good job that I haven't even had a pillow or a mattress or anything, and I'm still a big fan. So tell your marketing they're doing great.
So I work for a company called Purple. We specialize in we're trying to focus mostly on people's wellness regarding sleep at the moment. And so we manufacture different mattresses and pillows, bedding, and it's been a really fun ride. So in my position there, I'm the soft goods design manager. So all the fabric components of our mattresses, pillows, etc., me and my team helped develop all of those.
And you guys just got done with a really big, fun project?
We just launched 9 new mattresses.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
2 new lines of mattresses and a rebrand. And that was all just a few weeks ago.
Amazing.
And it's been so exciting. All the beds have been so well received.
Good.
And it's been, oh my gosh, it's been such a ride.
What's the time frame from initial design for a new mattress to end game?
That depends.
Okay.
So typically I 18 to 24 months, year and a half, 2 years. We did this one in 9 months.
Half the time.
Yeah. It was insane. It was crazy. And we have various cut and sew suppliers. So it's a factory that'll sew the covers that then we put on in our warehouse, our factory here in Utah.
Okay.
And they're located in Central America. And so I went on several trips.
Oh, I was saying that. That looked like so much fun. I mean, lots of work, right?
But a lot of work fun. And a lot of work, but it was also a lot of fun. There was at one point when we had planned to take 2 separate trips, a week apart, basically, because we couldn't get, all the materials and components down in time. And so anyway, we go on the first part of the trip, and we're supposed to come home on Friday, and on Thursday, my boss calls, and he's like, "Hey, I need you to stay. We're getting all the final components down there. They'll be there Monday." And I was like, I am not prepared to stay for 10 days. I only packed for 5. What do I do? And then I was like, and then it just occurred to me. I was like, okay, I'll stay as long as I can stay at the beach over the weekend. He was like, done.
Negotiating. I love it.
Yes. Because I was like, we're here working hard. Yeah. You better believe we're going to enjoy it while we can.
Especially if you're kind of just waiting for a couple days. You might as well get to enjoy it.
Exactly. Exactly. So I negotiated that. And so it was me, another person on my team, and one of our technical writers. We're all women, just 3 of us in a Central American country that historically has been pretty sketchy for the last decade.
Yeah.
And my boss was like, "Are you comfortable staying there?" Making sure that I'd be okay. And I speak Spanish fluently. Cool. I have a couple of team members on my team who are fluent Spanish from Peru and Mexico. So it's kept my Spanish nice and crisp, because I get to use it. And so I was like, "Oh, I'll be fine. I do kickboxing and Krav Maga, and I speak Spanish. I'll be fine." And he's like, "Okay."
That is the level I would love to get to, honestly. It's just in any scenario, I'd like to know that I can support myself, defend myself. I don't know. Yeah. Just take care of myself.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel pretty confident. I'm trying not to be overly confident.
No, but being honest, that's good.
Yeah. And so I'm like, no, I think I'll be fine. And so we had talked to one of the employees about where they recommended we stay at the beach. And we found this perfect little sleepy surf town. And it was right in this little cove, kind of away from bigger surf cities and stuff. And it was just perfect beachfront little cottage. And it was the best. They had this sweet little lady and this younger girl there. She's probably in her teens. Mm-hmm. And they had a cooking shack on the corner of the property. And they would cook us anything off the menu from like 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Oh, living a great weekend.
It
waiting
was
for work to come on Monday.
Yeah, no, exactly. So the three of us, I took so many videos and like shared them on social media like, oh, this is the worst work trip.
Yeah, no, I was following it heavily and I was like, rude.
It was a blast. And honestly, like, I feel like we had such a good balance of like working, getting all this stuff done, and then also like playing. It was a good balance of that.
You need a balance.
Yes. Oh, if there's anything I've learned in my career, you got to balance, and you've got to be the one that sets those boundaries.
Yeah.
So I've learned that the hard way.
Celebrating a little bit, huh?
Yeah.
Rewarding yourself.
But it was good. And so, yeah, I love my job. I love the opportunities that I've gotten to travel and to support my team. And one of my favorite things as a manager, I lead, so we're a team of 6. Mm-hmm. And I love seeing people succeed. I love seeing my team members grow and learn new skills and see them just like keep progressing and getting better at all the things they want to progress at. That is so satisfying. I was worried to ever become a manager because I was like, I don't want to be separated from the product development design side of things because I love that. I love the hands-on just making stuff. But I've had the chance to lead people. Oh my gosh. It's my favorite.
I've heard you're really good at it.
Alpha brags on me all the time.
Alpha is the reason you're on here right now.
Going back to how we met, original question here. One of my team members is Alpha Alu. And he's
an
amazing
designer.
Just wonderful guy.
Yes.
I freaking adore him. He and his family are just wonderful. He put out a like last minute model call for some being on
the TV.
Yes, actually. On TV.
It was not low. I was so nervous. I was about to crap my pants. I was like, what am I doing? Why am I saying yes to this?
So going back to my whole, like, I wanted to be a model when I was young kind of days, I, like, jokingly was like, if you ever want a relatable model, let me know. Like, 5'3", mom bod. And anyway, he was like, no, seriously, I want you to. And I was like, no, I was just kidding, Alpha. He's like, no, you're doing it now. And I was like, okay.
Literally. And I'm like, I'll do it. I guess we need different representation.
Yes. So that's how you and I met. We were there. And
I just got naked in front of you and got
same,
dressed.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. Just
nice to meet you.
Yeah. Hi. Here I am.
But that was so fun. And it was such a good opportunity. I think having representation of like core demographic people instead of just like runway models.
Correct.
Yeah.
100% I agree. And I remember messaging Alpha the night before. I was like, my hair's green. Is that okay? He's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't care if you dye it right now, a different color. Like, it doesn't matter. I was like, bless you, Alpha. I freaking love him. So.
Seriously.
Anyway, yeah. So I got to do a little bitty runway thing there.
Good things you taught. I might like throw it up just to give ourselves a shout out and Alpha.
Yes. It was really fun. So that's how we met. And then I just feel like I clicked with you a little bit and I was like, I like Chelsea. She's great.
Listen, when you see people naked, it's hard not to.
You
either like them or you don't.
You get a bond immediately, you know?
Very
anyway, so yeah, and that's how we met. And then we just kind of stayed in touch on social media. And I'm glad we did.
Me too.
I sometimes want to I follow you a lot and I'll always be watching your stories and stuff. And I always want to say more than I do. But I'm like, oh, I don't want to come off as annoying.
Listen, it's free for all. I am the type of person that's like, I act like everyone's posting just for me.
Oh.
And so I'm like, this is so cool. This
nice.
I'm always just like that annoying person. You can ignore me if I'm doing that to anyone. But I've loved the support from you, and it feels like very genuine and reassuring. And also when you feel like you kind of have a connection with that person, it weighs a little bit heavier. And so you're like, oh, they like what I'm doing. Like, that's so nice. And it's so reaffirming.
And even though there are things you experience or things you do that I don't fully relate to or understand, I still love seeing what you're doing and supporting you in that.
Same. And same with yours. Like, right? I don't know what it's like to be a mom, but I could imagine. And it's fun to watch other people's experiences through life as long as it's authentic, which I do feel yours is authentic.
Thank you. Likewise. Yeah. Exactly. And that's why I get along. Like, I don't know that we have all the same interests, but it doesn't matter. You don't have to have the same interests to get along with someone.
No, or to sit down and have a good conversation and just connect, because I think that's one thing I'm missing I am so lonely working from home alone all the time that like this is a necessity for me as a human. So before it's like a business, before it's my creative outlet, it's feeding me in a human way to just connect. And if honestly people don't want to watch it, I don't even care.
You're not doing it for them.
No, I'm doing it for here and now. And like I've had like a kind of rough weekend just like getting in my head, and I have just been like so excited to sit down with you because I know I'll feel so much better after.
Thank you.
Than I have like before. So it's very motivating to be around like-minded people and people who are honest about going through hard things along with the good. You know what I mean?
And I found I'm pretty much an open book. I've been through a lot of different things. I was diagnosed with PTSD when I started going to therapy, and I realized no one talks about any of that. And I was like, that's got to change.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty much an open book. My one rule is you can ask me anything. And if I say, I'm not up for talking about that, you got to respect it. That's it.
Absolutely.
That's
boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Speaking of PTSD.
Yes.
Is that something you're willing to talk about a little bit here?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that.
I'll let you lead and then I'll follow.
So, I feel like I try. Let me preface this a little. You
don't have to say why.
No. I struggle a little bit to compare what my trauma was to maybe what other people's, because there's always someone with worse trauma.
Yeah, you can't compare traumas.
Absolutely. So preface that I don't by any means think that I had the worst trauma. That's not the case. But trauma is trauma, and it negatively impacts you no matter what it was.
Exactly.
And so I dealt with some really terrible things in my childhood, and I dealt with some really terrible things in college again, and it was really hard to heal from. Mm-hmm. And interestingly, so I can say it was sexually related stuff, right? Not uncommon, unfortunately, but as a child, someone that you trust takes advantage of that, and I didn't know what was happening. I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was like 7 years old.
Yeah.
Didn't know what was going on until later. And then as a 12-year-old, growing up in a religious family, I go to church and I learn all these things about, sex and how wrong it is and how it's make you impure and it's, terrible or whatever they said. So many things.
So
all of a sudden,
shame.
All of a sudden I was like, well, crap, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Who's going to want me? That was kind of what I understood. And that plus my rebellious attitude toward things, it was kind of a recipe for disaster in a lot of ways.
Just middle fingers to everyone for years.
Oh, yeah. Basically.
I can
basically
feel that.
Well, and my mom and dad didn't understand what was going on. Like, I was just a moody, angry teenager, and they did not know why. I mean, I had all older brothers. I had no sisters. I was the youngest. And I'm pretty sure my brothers probably just thought I was spoiled. And maybe I was a little bit. Because I was the only girl, of course.
I was gonna say, and the youngest girls always get it,
Exactly. But at the same time, I was also dealing with a lot of heavy stuff that I should never have had to deal with.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was after I was married, I think. I finally had gone to therapy for a few years, and I had this urge that I wanted to tell my parents what had happened. But I was terrified.
Yeah.
I was terrified of it. I was like, how are they going to understand? What are they going to think of me? And then I was like, if they do any kind of victim blaming, I will cut them out of my life. But I was like, I can't see them doing that. So anyway, there was one afternoon at one of my brother's houses. My parents came into town to visit here in Utah, and I told my mom, standing on the back deck, and I told her. And she just listened. And she gave me a hug, and she said, a lot of things make sense now. And she said, I'm so sorry. And just super understanding. And all the fear that I'd held about, like, how was she going to respond, just instantly dissolved. I was like, why would I have thought my mom would have responded poorly? Like, she's the most loving, tender, one of the most wonderful women on this earth. I can't imagine that she would have responded poorly. But it was a fear that I had still. Anyway.
Well, and our brains tell us that people will respond that way.
Yes. All the negative stuff that I had heard and, internalized my whole life was coming out no matter who I was thinking about, you know, it was, worst case scenario, biggest fear kind of thing. But I told her, and I did not know how to tell my dad.
Yeah.
And so I was like, can you tell Dad? I can't.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, yeah, I'll make sure he knows. I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to put that burden on her, but it was more than I could do at that point.
I was going to say, that is such a task in itself.
Yes.
To go and do that again, like, would just be so much harder on you.
Yeah.
And so not that you were never willing to tell your dad, it just was like, instead of keeping him in the dark
I could talk to him about it now.
Yeah.
No problem. But at that time when it was so fresh, I was just barely starting to heal. It would have been too much for me.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was
good. I'm so glad you were received that way. That's so nice.
Because I know not everybody has that experience.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart to know that.
Yeah.
You know. But I'm so grateful that I had a positive experience with, talking to my parents about that.
With dealing with PTSD in your marriage and things like that, was that something that you were like aware of like, yes, this is a PTSD trigger or?
So my husband, when we met on that road trip that one time, we just were completely open with each other from the start. And so that initial trip we took, we ended up hanging out like every day. He went up to visit his friends and snowboard, and we ended up snowboarding every day together. He met my whole family just about, because one of my brothers was moving out to Utah.
Cool.
So he met my entire family, and there was no pressure because he was a stranger.
Yeah, it's like, this is just my friend.
Yeah, so he met my whole family like a couple of days after he met me. Anyway, but that start of our friendship, it was just so beautiful. Yeah. And from the start, I was like, hey, I really struggle with these things. I've had this crap happen to me in my life, and I just really need someone to accept me for it. And he did. And same from him. He told me, he's like, I really struggle with these things. I really need a friend to just accept me for it. And so we did. That's how it started. I mean, sure, I thought he was super hot. But like on top of that, he was just so sweet and kind and caring and genuine.
So he got even hotter.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yep. Totally. Where can I sign?
Yeah. So I was like, I knew I wanted to have a relationship with him. And, but he and I, we both ended up serving LDS missions.
So you separated for a little bit?
Yeah, for about 2.5 years. And I mean, we wrote each other and stayed in touch, but I dated while he went out a year before I did, and I dated, and oh gosh, I hated dating.
I was gonna say, especially when there's a really good one.
Yes. How does it compare? Yeah, there's no comparison.
It's just got to be timing too, right?
Yeah. But anyway, and then he came home before I did, and I guess he hadn't dated a ton. He'd had a couple of girlfriends, but I found out toward the end of my missionary service, I found out he was trying to date this girl who was like, what was it? She was from Britain. So, I was like, oh man, she's British. She's got that cute accent. Ah, dang it. How am I going to win him back?
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Don't even worry about that. Because if I have to try really hard and be fake, it's not going to do anything. So I was like, I'll just be me, and we'll just be friends at the very least. And he even tried dumping me once after we started dating. And like, not even an hour later, he came back and he's like, I feel terrible. That was the wrong thing.
I regret. Instant regret. Buyer's remorse.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, sorry, where were we going with that? Oh yeah. So all my PTSD stuff, when I got married, so Bob and I, we were really close. He already knew all my baggage before we were even engaged. Like he knew about it. I don't think he'd had a whole lot of firsthand experience with it.
Okay.
So that was different.
I will agree with you on that. Yes.
There was one night, and here's the thing with PTSD, with how it affects me, my memory sucks. It's terrible. I have gaps in my memory where my brain just would disassociate and I literally would not recall things. Whole conversations with people I would not recall, and they would remember it word for word.
Like even within the last couple of years of...
Even still, my memory sucks.
Okay, yeah.
But it used to be really bad.
Right. But it's not just like memory gaps from back then. It's from current times.
Young adult in my 20s, I have gaps in my memory because trauma just impacts you and you never know how it will.
Yeah.
So anyway, there was one night, and I remember this because of how things ended up. Like I know at the time I knew that I would occasionally have just basically a whole emotional mental breakdown, and I would go into flashbacks and just sorry.
No, you're okay.
No, sorry. I'm feeling things and it's good.
Yes.
And then after like that whole episode like that would end, I would block it from my memory. and I would not remember it so I could function the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And one night, Bob and I were engaged, and he came over, and we were talking. It was getting kind of late, and I went into one of these episodes, and I was like pulling at my fingernails, my cuticles, till I was bleeding, and he couldn't touch me, and I was like curled up in a ball on the floor, rocking, and he just felt so horrible. He's like, I can't do anything for her. I can't touch her. So he just sat there in the same room as me, making sure that I didn't like hurt myself. And then at some point I fell asleep. And I wake up the next morning and like, whoop, blocking that from my memory so I can function and go back to school. And I come out to the kitchen and he was sitting there asleep at the dining table. And this was BYU approved housing. Guys aren't supposed to stay the night. So he's like breaking rules, but it was because he was so scared for me and so worried about me.
Well, and he did the best he could within the rules, right?
So he didn't stay in my room.
Yeah.
He was at the table where obviously nothing was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And he like wakes up when he hears me come out and he just looks at me and he's like, are you okay? And I didn't want to talk about it, but he wouldn't let me not talk about it because he's like, you really need to address this. And he so kindly, he was like, so have you ever thought about therapy? As nonchalantly as he could. And I was like, therapy, whatever. And he was like, okay, well, for me, will you try at least going one time? And I was like, okay, for you, I'll go once. Because, you know, my parents were the generation that like therapy was kind of a load of baloney. Mm-hmm. And that's what I thought. And so I find a therapist and go one time, and by the end of the session I'm like, how many times can I come? Well, like just planning everything, you know, trying to like, I was going 2 times a week at first, and then, you know, and it was wonderful, so life-changing for me.
Yeah. So that was the first time you tried therapy then?
Yeah. Wow. I was in college. How old was I? 23 or 24 or something like that. Yeah.
Such a resource, isn't it?
Yeah. And it was the BYU's like therapy center, which I don't know how, but it was like meant to be. I got paired with the perfect therapist for me, the perfect grad student who was doing it. She was amazing. I even looked her up and I was like, can you see me again? Because we moved away, came back when I dropped out of school or whatever. Okay. It was after I started therapy. So anyway, when we got back, I was like, where is she? Yeah. Can she be my therapist again? Anyway.
There is a serious, and I think it's normal, but the connection you have with your therapist. I've had therapists before. My therapist from my teenage years, she was in like her 60s, and we continued therapy when I moved to California. We did it over the phone. And then she decided she was going to retire at 71. And I said, that's not allowed. I'm in crisis. That's not allowed.
Yes.
And she was so nice and kept seeing me until I found someone else.
Oh.
But it's so true. Like, you can either have a really good therapist or a really bad therapist, and that is a catalyst.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you were able to find one that worked well with you.
It was life-changing. I think if I hadn't had a good therapist, I don't know where I'd be right now.
Yeah. Or if
because I don't know if I would have tried again with someone else.
Yeah.
You know, with a different therapist. I don't know if I would have had it in me.
Were you and Bob, did that take time to like get through? And maybe I'm asking for my own self.
Hey, it's fine. I'm an open book.
But like PTSD, just because it isn't talked about, it's hard to find people who are willing to talk about it, or like, and it varies so much by person too. So I've found that when I have my episodes that vary in whatever they look like, depending on where I'm at, even, I just get really embarrassed. And I push those close to me away. Because you don't want to seem like that really bad term, like a crazy person. You know what I mean? Like, people aren't crazy. They're experiencing things.
Glad you got the tissues.
I knew. And I hesitate to even share that, like, I had one if I wasn't around him when I had it. And same with, like, my parents or my close friends, too. It's just, like, are we going to pretend that didn't happen for everyone? But then that does me a disservice in the long run.
Yeah.
And I will say, being with someone who gives you a safe space emotionally and physically is so fundamental to being able to heal.
Absolutely.
And the general importance of having safe people and safe environments around you while you're trying to heal, I think is...
Well, that's critical. You're not going to heal unless you feel safe. Because you'll just be in survival mode again. And you can't heal when you're in survival mode.
No. And I think I was in survival mode for so many years that, like, I don't even have... Like, I have low cortisol. Mm-hmm. I keep thinking that I have, like, high cortisol because I'm, like, stressed or anxious all the time. But it's like, no, we've been in this state for too long that it's like... We're so exhausted.
Yes. It's like burnout at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hard.
So when I met you, I was not working. I was just like, nope, I'm done. I'm focusing on me. Good. And I'm just now getting back to like high functioning. And even that feels like uncomfortable.
I'm so proud of you, though.
Thank you.
Goodness, that is hard.
Therapy twice a week for like 3 months and EMDR, I would say.
Awesome.
Huge, huge help. And there's like a guilt that comes with it after feeling it for so long. Yeah. And I'm like, why am I like not feeling like I'm 1,000 pounds right here only? Or why can I get through a day and just be like, fine? That feeling is putting me back into like my depressive, like this is so uncomfortable.
Yep.
Feeling good.
Humans are weird that way. Yeah. We want familiar, even if familiar is toxic.
And like, yeah, just terrible.
It's so screwed up.
Yeah. Yes. Really. How long did it take you, or are you still finding that, do you think?
So I feel like for me, it is going to be a lifelong thing. It's not like, oh, I'm healed today. Yeah. It's not like getting over a cold or like healing from a cut. You may have a scar, but like it's not oozing or, bleeding. Right. It's a totally different kind of injury. And I think for me, it's going to just be continual my whole life, which sucks. But also, man, I'm glad I know.
Well, and you're just getting better at it each day and each time you're working on it, right?
Yeah. And I don't think I've had any serious like episodes like that first one Bob witnessed. I haven't had any like that for years now. I will feel when I start to get kind of disassociative, or I'll start to feel like depressed, or I'll start to feel burnout, or something like that. I am so aware of those feelings now. And I feel like I've gone to the extreme of all of these things. I used to just be like a machine. I was numb. I would not let myself feel anything. Just so I could function, just so I could like do well in school and be pursuing this future that I wanted. And at some point I discovered I don't have any good relationships with anyone because I'm a machine. I don't have any friendships. And it wasn't till after Bob and I had met that I was like, I'm crazy about this guy. And I feel so close to him because I let all of those barriers down. He's the first person I ever like told all this stuff to. I don't even know why I thought I could trust him, but apparently I could.
I was going to say, maybe just a gut feeling.
I don't. It almost feels like, this is weird for some people, but it almost feels like I knew him before I was born, right? And we just had that connection. And maybe that's true. I don't know.
I think that's beautiful, whether it's true or not, because, and I believe that is an honest feeling. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
and he agrees. He feels that same way about me.
Like a twin flame.
Yeah. It's like we're really just meant to be together. As hard as life is, and as much as our different baggage causes problems for the other, I can't imagine being with anybody else. I don't think I would be. Let me clarify. I would not be with anybody else. I would be a single career woman if I had not married Bob. Yeah. And I'm not trying to brag, but I had many opportunities to marry other men. Yeah. I just never wanted to. He's the only guy I've ever wanted to marry.
You're a hot commodity.
I don't know about that, but thanks.
You got the right one, it sounds like. And you said you have 4 kids?
Three kids and a dog.
3 kids.
Yeah. So 3 boys. I'm again surrounded by boys. So, which I think is good because I don't know if I could raise a daughter right now, like knowing my life experience, and I would be so terrified I'd be so terrified to know that she could have those same things happen to her.
Yeah.
And my sons could too, but it feels so much more
targeted,
likely, as a female than as a male.
Well, and even in Utah, like the number is 3 out of 5 women.
Yep.
So
it's horrible.
Yeah.
It makes me so angry.
Mm-hmm. That's not my story to tell, but it's so, I say this when I can. Talking about sexual assault is such a hard thing for me because it doesn't seem like there's any solution.
No.
It doesn't seem like there's anyone willing to find a solution. It doesn't seem like it's ever going to end. And so it seems like the solutions that we're given is know how to fight. Don't go out at night. Like all these stereotypical things. But these things can happen in intimate partner relationships.
100%.
They can happen, again, with a trusted person as a child. And it doesn't have to, it's so ignorant to think that it's not happening in those situations. And
it could happen even when you're doing everything you're supposed to avoid it.
Yeah, but it's so uncomfortable for everyone to talk about that the people who are able to make changes are not willing to have this conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't have a place I want to go to with this. It's so, every time I have the conversation with people and it gets a little heated, I am like, this is why I'm not in sexual assault advocacy. This is why I can't,
it's
I can't,
heavy.
Yeah, I can't dedicate myself to it personally.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah.
I can talk about my experience in smaller forms and sporadically, but it will ruin me if I focus too much on it.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. So as I numbed myself and started feeling things again and being human instead of a robot, I realized I have so many feelings and I'm an incredibly empathetic person.
Mm-hmm.
And I never knew that about myself till I was probably 26 or 7. I was mid to late 20s before I realized I'm an empathetic person. I love people.
But are you also attracted to people who are in hard times?
Oh gosh.
And like a fixer?
I used to be. I used to date guys that needed help.
A project.
Yes.
Fun.
Not all of them. In fact, in high school, I dated a guy who honestly was wonderful. Did not need anything. Had no flaws as far as I could tell. And so I dumped him. Because I was terrified. I was like, oh, he's worth being committed to. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So
also, if he's not a project, is he going to leave?
Yeah. And that was the other fear. Was I need so much work. Why does he like me? I am so screwed up. Yeah. I felt like we were just at 2 different levels. And anyway,
yeah.
He's a wonderful guy. I'm still friends with him.
Good.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to get to is that I appreciate your vulnerability in talking about these things, even though they're so hard and they don't make us who we are, but they play a fundamental part in how we navigate life, right?
Oh,
how you navigate being a mom and a partner and a friend and a leader, because these things don't stop. They're never going to stop. And so when you experience them in the workplace, one of your employees is going through something or a friend, you're so much more capable to help those people. And sounds like you've set up good boundaries.
It's the empathy again, So Bob and I feel like I'm doing really well in life right now. Good. Which is awesome to be able to say, because I felt like my whole life would just be a struggle in survival mode. That's what I expected. I didn't really know it could be different or better. Mm-hmm. But Bob helps me feel safe in so many ways. If we ever had an intruder break in our house, I would be the one defending our family against that.
But in other ways. Like emotional and mental health and safety, Bob is so wonderful for me for that. And it's really quite easy to provide, in case people are wondering how they can.
It is. It just, and honestly, Bob, he I say this because he's told me so many times, he loves to provide that for me because he cares about me so much. I honestly don't know where I'd be without him. I know it's cliche, but like literally he's the one who supported me and encouraged me to go to therapy and to heal. And he's been supporting me all the way through figuring out this healing process for myself. Like with PTSD from sexual assault, it can be really hard to have intimate relationships.
Yeah.
Like really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know what's going to be a trigger for you. And it's really awkward when you're like in the middle of having sex with this person you love so much and something happens, triggers a memory, and then you go into
You're just gone.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're just a body.
What do you do? What do you do? And Bob's been wonderful about like making sure that I am present and engaged. And if anything is ever wrong, he just stops immediately because he loves me.
Well, and it sounds like he also understands too that like intimacy is a two-way street. And so if only one person is present,
it's not going to be as good as it could be.
Yeah. No.
Yes.
For both parties.
Yes. Definitely.
And that's something I just recently worked through, so I'm open to talking about it. And I didn't know I was disassociating during intimacy until he told me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I felt so much guilt and sadness, all those things. And then I sat down and had like the most uncomfortable therapy sessions with my therapist because we're talking about sex in graphic terms. And I am so glad that we had that awkward conversation to me go to my therapist and figure out what I can do. I will say just one tip in case you're not in therapy and going through something like this is just bring yourself back to your senses.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that was big for me. So like picking out like things on his skin, like freckles, smells. You have to bring yourself back to this present moment and understand who you're with again, the safety component, and have that dialogue of like, we can stop whenever, and that's no one's fault.
Yes. That has been same. Like that's been my experience too. And honestly, it's been so healing for me to discover that I can have intimate sexual experiences with this guy that I am crazy about and not have it go bad. Like, and
have it be fun now.
Yeah, fun and enjoyable. Exciting. And even like literally a spiritual experience at times. Yeah. Like transcending. I never knew I could do that.
And also not that it was never not fun.
No.
It just is so much more fun now.
It feels healthy now.
Yeah.
And it didn't before.
So much more connecting.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I never used to talk about this kind of stuff, but, like growing up in a religious household, you don't talk about sex. You have the birds and the bees.
Unless you're trying to have kids, then everyone's talking about it, which I don't understand.
Are you trying? Yeah, the whole...
What are we asking people?
I know. I don't know. Not for me.
No.
But talking about sex in the sense of like healing from trauma, I feel like that is so much more wholesome and it needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
When Bob and I were first married, I had someone that I was really close to who was, I don't know all the details of her story, but she was not in a good place. And I think she had just dumped someone or gotten out of a relationship and was trying to figure out like what to do, how to get her life going. And she was probably like 18. I can't remember now for sure, but love this girl so much. I found out about all this and I was like, hey, if you need a place to go, you can always stay with me, because we had an extra bedroom in our first apartment. And she was like, really? I was like, yeah, don't let not having a place to live stop you. Like, if you want to get out of that town and get here, like, and start life here, I would love to have you just stay with us for as long as you need. I'm pretty sure she experienced some sexual trauma like that as well. And so for her to have a place where she felt safe was huge. And for me, it gave me a sense of purpose to like, I can use this damage and pain that I've endured to help other people not have to endure so much pain. Yeah. Because I love them and I care about them and I don't want them to have to deal with that.
Right.
It gives meaning behind all the stuff that I went through.
And even just sharing your story so that people feel like you're someone they could talk to without judgment, I'm sure is a huge help to so many people in your life.
I hope so. Like, I I have had some conversations recently about if I had known myself at like 16 or 18, I probably would not have been friends with myself.
Oh, no, that chick is not invited to my house.
No. And I've actually was talking to my therapist about this recently, and I'm like, I can't stand that girl. Like, I don't think Bob would have liked her if we had met.
For sure, no.
No. I would have liked Bob when he was that age. He would not have liked me. Let me clarify that. Let's get that straight. But I also recognize that I was coping the only way I knew how. I can't fault myself for that. I was pretty terrible to some people. Like, I think about guys that I was an absolute jerk to. Guys that I had led on because I liked the feeling of being liked. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was valuable. Guys that I like screwed over in so many ways. Just, I have so much regret for that. Those actions, those behaviors. And I've had so much, I guess, anger toward myself for how I behaved back then. And it wasn't until recently in therapy that my therapist was like, you were surviving. You didn't know how to treat people. You didn't know what you know now.
Yeah.
And I've always said I'd never want to go back to high school. I never want to live through that again. And I don't still. But I think I wouldn't hate it as much as I did then if I knew what I know now. If I understood who I am, if I understood all the things I know now, I probably would enjoy it. Honestly. Yeah. Anyway.
No, so I agree. I mean, I just had a conversation with a friend I grew up with, and we were, in and out of friends, hard on each other, not hard on each other. And we're sitting at dinner just like, I'm crying. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm just so sorry. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I can't say it enough. And she's like, we were just kids. We were just doing the best that we could. Yeah, no.
There are a few people in particular that I've had on my mind for the last few years. And I want to reach out and be like, I just want to apologize. I was a crappy human, and you deserved a better friend. You deserved someone who treated you nicely. You deserved a girl who was upfront with you instead of leading you on. Like, I have some people I really want to reach out to and do that. But my fear is that, are they in a place where they're ready to accept my apology?
Well, and that's the thing. That may be nice to hear, but they also may not need to hear it too. I think a lot of times is we just should give everyone a clean slate from like 18 below.
I am.
So if you come up to me and apologize for something that happened when we were younger than 18, immediate forgiven.
Same.
Because, I mean, we're just products of our environment.
Not to mention our trauma.
Yeah, and we're not given all the tools to know how to handle or maneuver society with all of that trauma and experience. No. So it's like, what do? We just are behaving like our monkey brain in the back. You know what I mean?
It's true. I have figured out how to forgive myself because I recognize I didn't know any better. Like, now that I know better, I am doing better.
Good.
And that's how I know that I can forgive myself, because I'm not going to regress back into that girl. So now it's just, I got to figure out how to become okay with the, I don't know, guilt I feel for other people on their behalf,
Yeah. Well, and even like when I'm driving and people have road rage, I'm like, oh, they're going through it today, huh? Like, glad it's not me. Yeah. At least there's a car between us. I don't know. It's like, people really are. If people are behaving poorly, likely something's going on. Oh, yeah. And that's one thing I've been able to kind of be a duck recently. I'm like, oh, not me. This is not about me unless they say it is.
Yes.
And then we can have that conversation.
Same.
But
so yeah, I'm doing much better now though with all the.
What would you say you attribute it to? Just like consistency or?
Man, I don't know if there's one thing, honestly. Consistency is big. There's so many things. Consistency and being resilient. I mean, I hate that we have to be resilient. There you go. But no, seriously though, like it's amazing what human beings can endure and still manage to be alive and still manage to care about others. Mm-hmm. Like, that boggles my mind a bit. So a little more background here. Right out of college, I worked for a tech company on their industrial design team and realized I don't want to design tech products. Realized that pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, after that, I worked 2 part-time jobs. One, I was teaching graphic design and design thinking to underprivileged high schoolers. And the other one was I was a craft kit designer for like craft kits that you buy at like Joann's or Michael's.
Hell yeah.
And make little fun stuff for like 8-year-old girls. I was designing those.
Nice.
For a different company. And it was super fun. And then I got a full-time job offer from one, and the other one like made me an offer too, and it wasn't as good. So I took the one and took a risk and moved my family to rural Utah to try and start a cut and sew facility to bring new careers to the community.
Wow.
I loved the mission. I loved that nonprofit. I was dedicated. We moved out there.
Right.
Like,
and you had all 3 kids at the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had all 3 kids. It was so good. It was such a good job, really good work we were doing until it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have good boundaries. I didn't have good work-life balance. I was working 70-hour work weeks and going home and cleaning every evening and all weekend long and going back to work on Monday. I was all work.
Mm-hmm.
And I burned out really bad. And at one point we had a big project at work going on, and I had driven back up to Utah Valley to try and like find some materials to finish this manufacturing project we were doing because we were running short. And I drive back, and on the drive back, I discovered I was really tempted to just drive off a cliff. And it took all of my self-control not to. And I remember thinking, that's weird. I don't think that's normal. And it was so baffling because I'd never felt that before. It was so weird and new. And I got back to work and I like brought all this stuff, and my boss was mad at me. She was livid that I had been gone all day and didn't understand where I was or what I was doing. And I was like, obviously we have to finish this project for this client. I had to go get supplies for it. We don't have anything here because it's rural Utah. Mm-hmm. There's nothing here. And it seemed like she still didn't get it. So I went home that night, and I don't remember if I talked to him then, but I told Bob at some point shortly after that, like, I've been having these thoughts. And one morning, I couldn't get out of the shower. I literally was curled up in a ball on the floor of my shower because I was afraid if I got out and saw any opportunity to take my life, I would. I couldn't drive. I couldn't cook dinner. And Bob found me at some point and was like, we need to take care of this. Like, this is clearly more than is normal. Like, this is not normal. And so we didn't know where to start. We didn't know what to do. Because what do you do with someone who's suicidal? Like, where do you take them? Not a lot of
people know.
No,
yeah.
Especially in like this tiny town of 3,000 people. Like,
right.
Where do you go?
You know that you might need therapy. You don't know what the next steps if therapy's not working.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I ended up going to I was hospitalized for 8 days. And man, it was amazing. It was so hard and so amazing all at the same time. I had been so disconnected from me and who I was and the things that make me feel alive. Because here's the other thing. Growing up the way I did, I received the messages at some point that men were more important than women because of what they could provide to society. So here I was trying to overcompensate, being skilled and talented and valuable. And so a lot of how I defined myself was, what can I do for society? What can I do for other people? And that meant I was important. And so I feel like I had internalized this at this job. Like, as long as I can deliver all these things, I am important and I'll be successful. Meanwhile, my emotional and mental well-being were just crumbling.
Right.
So anyway.
But I think that's important to know that most people hold their personal value to those similar things instead of like, do I feel
It's intrinsic.
fulfilled?
It should not be like that.
No.
It's intrinsic. You are important because you're a human being. Period. That's it. Which I have had to learn for myself, and I'm still learning for myself.
Same.
Anyway, so my husband and I, we go to like urgent care, and we're like, what do we do? And then they're like, we don't have any resources. Go to the ER. So we go to the ER, and we're like, hi, what do we do? And we're checking in. Sorry, I have some macabre sense of humor a little bit.
No, you have to if you've been through these things.
Yeah. It's a coping mechanism, honestly. So we go to check in, and we're like checking in at the ER, and the lady was like, well, we see people by severity of their injury. And I was like, oh, so you're saying if I want to be seen sooner, I should just go
cut myself or chop a finger off.
I said, so if I want you to see me sooner, I know what to do. And like winked at her, and she was like, I was like, oh, too soon. Sorry.
Listen, also, if I had to go to 2 different places, I don't know if I would have made it to 2 other places.
Well, my husband is driving me, so.
Well, and locked the doors. And like, when you're in that state of mind, being passed around only makes it worse.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So I got in the ER, and they like, I don't know, was he a psychologist or I don't know, the guy that came in who therapized me for, I don't know what to call
Hell yeah, no, therapized. That's it.
He came in and talked with me, and he was wonderful. He was really good. I wanted to go back and see him as a therapist, like after this whole ordeal, but then it didn't work out. Anyway, he was awesome.
Good.
And he referred me to this hospital up in Salt Lake, and took an ambulance ride up to Salt Lake at like 4 a.m. That was fun.
Dude.
And yeah, it was the weirdest thing, because I'm like, I am living and breathing, like, this is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this a problem? Maybe, and then I was like, maybe I'm being too dramatic.
Oh, you're gaslighting yourself.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. No, the whole time you're like, wait, do I need to really go here? Did I just say something I shouldn't have said?
Well, I'm like, am I being too dramatic? Maybe I'll be, I could probably go home and I'll be fine.
When really, like, not many minutes ago, you were trapped in a shower.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you were to say that to the therapist, they'd be like, all right, let's get you a bed.
Exactly.
You're in.
Exactly. So I spent 8 days at this, hospital, and it was wonderful. Honestly, it was really hard. It was kind of scary, really weird, just a really weird experience, because I'm like, I'm a competent, capable adult. Like, why am I here? But at the same time, I'm like, I can color with crayons again?
Well, the stereotype is that it's just like people off the streets are going into the mental hospital.
Oh, no.
No, these are
I have a
working-
degree.
Yeah.
I am working. I am highly successful. I have a family. I'm married. Like, I am what you would consider a, like, contributing citizen.
Yeah, it's your neighbors. It's your friends. It's your family. They're in there.
Yeah.
And I spent about 8 days in a hospital as well. A couple years. I think I said 6. I just came up on my 6-year anniversary. I know. I think I might have been getting out like this week.
Oh my gosh.
6 years ago. Yeah. But I came out of there, and I think I told my parents, I said, if you ever want to just get to know people who've been handed a whole lot of shit in their life, go to a severely depressed ward.
Go hang out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's not people who want to be in there.
No.
It's people who want to be contributing to society and their families.
I didn't want to be in there. I didn't even think I needed to be in there.
Mm-hmm.
I thought people were making too big a deal. I was like, maybe I just I don't know. Maybe I just went
just
overboard.
a moment.
Yeah. But then I was like, oh my gosh, I have time to sit down and color. I have time to read a book. We're going to watch a movie. Like, these are things that I hadn't done in over a year.
Self-care.
Yeah.
It really is.
Basic little hobbies, little things to do for fun. Hadn't done any of that in like a year.
Mm-mm.
It literally was killing me. And so I realized that's when I discovered boundaries are important. And keep in mind, this was only like 3 years ago.
Okay.
So I was like, boundaries are super important.
Yeah.
And no one's going to hold them up except for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Not my boss. Not even, Bob will try, but he doesn't know them the way I know they need to be for myself.
And you're your own persons, right? So autonomy.
And also, I can't be 100% 100% of the time. So my boundaries are going to change. They're going to evolve. They're going to be different one day to the next. And so who knows that better than I do?
Yeah.
You know? Anyway, that was where I learned, oh, I should set boundaries. Oh, I really do need to color and make pretty artwork things, because that's part of, like, keeps my soul alive. It makes me want to live when I can do stuff like that.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Although, I will ask, were the drawings and things a little bit dark at the beginning?
Actually, no.
Really?
No.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I love color.
Okay. Yeah.
In case you're wondering.
So maybe dark wasn't the...
I just wanted vivid, bright, colorful things. And the cool thing was my room, when I was there, had a window that the sun would rise and shine right into.
Oh, that's so nice.
It was exactly what I needed. And so having just that bright start of sunlight to my day.
Yeah.
Because I'm a very, like, bright, colorful person, and I'm pretty optimistic and cheerful and happy normally.
Yeah.
And to feel like that whole part of me was just, like, dead and gone, it was, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what to do with it. And so having the opportunity to, like, make drawings of bright colors, it was like slowly bringing that back, slowly reviving the side of myself that was gone. It was wonderful.
So nice. The hardest thing for me when I was in there was that they wanted us to talk to ourselves in the mirror.
Oh, that's weird.
And but just say hello to ourselves each morning. And I was like, that chick? You want me to talk to her?
That's hard to do.
Yeah. And I'm trying it again. And I'm
good.
Keeping more, like, little kid pictures of me. I have one, like, on my bathroom mirror so that I can, like, talk to her instead of me, because that's easier for me to do. But I will say, spending time in the hospital was exactly what I needed to get better. And I couldn't have gotten better without it. Nope. So I'm so glad you had the same here, uplifting experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was exactly what I needed. I don't think I would have survived that or learned what I needed to learn about myself had I not gone to the hospital.
And others, I was in a lot of group therapy, and so I was learning a lot about how to support myself through other people's journey and support others.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm like, oh, I've never experienced that, but they're telling it in a very honest, raw way that I can understand it. Whereas when you're just talking to people, this is pretty similar, I think, to, like, group therapy. But when you're just, like, talking to someone at a barbecue or something, you know what I mean? It's pretty surface level. And so it's hard to understand all the nuances. But when they're being so raw, it's like, okay. And that's where I could show up, or that's where I could retreat and be helpful. So
yeah, absolutely. The funny thing is, I remember having these, like, group sessions with other people in the ward there, and we all had a macabre sense of humor at the time, because that's a coping mechanism again, you know. We made so many jokes about suicide and death. Like, anywhere else, people be real concerned. Yeah, no. But it's like, all right, well, at least we're talking about it. It was a little bit of, like, release for us to just be like, oh, that's so dark and funny, you know? And anyway, there's actually one person from that whole experience that I kept in touch with. I connected on social media, and we are friends. Yeah. And occasionally they'll post, like, hey, this is my whatever anniversary of getting out of the hospital, mental hospital. And I'm like, oh my gosh, congrats. I'm so glad you're still alive. You know, like, seriously. We have this understanding with each other of that. And anyway. Well, you're meeting people at everyone's lowest. Yeah. Everyone's most like, I've got nothing to lose. So if you want to know my deepest, darkest, here it is. Here they are. And it's also, like, just common knowledge that we're not out sharing it, too. So there is that safety of, like, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What happens in the ward stays in the ward. Like, it's true, though. A friend of mine that I met in there, Nick, he was on the podcast. It was the last episode of last season. And we kind of divulged some of the stories in there. But everyone's anonymity? I always struggle with anonymity. Anonymity. Yeah, too many syllables. Sorry. Was protected. But I think it's necessary too, if you're able to foster those relationships outside of, are very helpful, because you can just go to that person and be like, hey, yes, I need to be real again for a second, and you get it. I feel like I never know who's willing to be that vulnerable with me. So it's hard to know who to go to. But since I've had these experiences, and I have friends on social media and in real life now who have, like, I don't know, they've come to me and been like, thank you for sharing that. And like, I know who I can trust now if I need that again.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Like, it's not just Bob. Bob is obvious. I can trust him with everything.
Bob's number one. We get it.
He is. But it's nice to have other people, because I also don't want to burden Bob with everything.
Yeah.
It gets
And
heavy.
that is a lot. You got to have a full network. That was one thing they taught me too, is you have to build a support network, because not one person or three people are going to always be available for you or have the capacity.
Absolutely.
So you need to have other people.
Absolutely.
So I carry around my mug. Still, like, I'll take it into public. It's been on here a couple of times. Like,
it's a source of, it's like a,
if you know, you know, sort of thing.
You do. I totally get it. Oh man. Well, the interesting thing was, so I got out of that whole hospital situation at the very beginning of March, and I had missed one of my brother's birthdays. And so I called him up like a week or two after I had been out, and I felt like I finally could, because I was like, I need to call him and apologize for missing his birthday, because I call him on his birthday every year, or I'll at least text him, and I didn't get to do that. And so I called him, and I was like, I probably need to tell him why I didn't call. And I did. I was a little nervous because I didn't know how I'd react. Because I feel like my brothers are all like level-headed, really just, good, ordinary humans. Yeah. I didn't, like, they don't have the weird issues that I seem to have. And I told him, I was like, hey, I want you to know, I wasn't ignoring you on your birthday. Like, I was in the hospital for a mental health crisis. And he just started asking me about it. He wanted to know about it. He listened, and he was so supportive, and then he told me his own scenario where he had something kind of similar. I mean, it wasn't exactly like mine, obviously, but he had been given more responsibilities for work, and he was miserable because of it. And he found a hobby to, like, save his life, essentially.
That's so good.
And so we connected over this. I never knew I would connect with any of my brothers over the fact that I had had this whole experience.
Yeah.
It surprised me, I guess. I never imagined that he'd be able to relate, but he really did.
That's awesome. Because I think when you're going through that experience, you're like, no one else. I have never heard anyone else I know.
Because no one talks about it.
Yeah, that's why I'm like yelling about it.
Yes.
Like, I've been in a mental hospital.
Exactly.
It's fine. You can talk to me about it.
There's life afterward too. It's not like it'll ruin your life going to mental hospital. It's not like it'll ruin your life admitting it.
But the stigma is so heavy that people are so ashamed.
Bad.
Like, will I get a job again? Will I be hired? Will I?
Here's the thing. When I got hired in my current job, after everything else that happened prior, when in my interview process, toward the end of my interview process, I told my now boss, I was like, I want you to know, I had this problem at my previous job. So I have these boundaries that are very important to me if I'm going to keep functioning and keep performing in work. Yeah. If I ever feel like anything is even approaching that again, I will let you know. And he's like, done. Okay. No problem. Yeah. And I realized I don't ever want to work for someone if that's a problem for them. Mm-hmm. If that's a problem for them, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not the right fit, obviously. So I feel like there's a stigma, but again, you'll find the right place to be, the right people in your life, if you are being authentic and being open and honest about that.
Yeah. Communication,
yes.
Right?
Yes. And I think it surprises me how many people can relate, how many people have had similar experiences. Like, it's shocking to me.
It is. And not that everyone needs to share if they've been...
No, personal choice.
Yeah. But, I mean, it would help a lot of people if we were all... Like, you don't have to make that your talking point. But you can be honest and like, that's something I did. Yeah. And it really helped. And then you can be like, I don't want to talk about it further.
Yeah, that's it.
But I think just that little glimmer, because when I was going on my like tour of having the conversation with my support group that I'm asking, can you support me in this way if I need X, Y, and Z? 2 of the people on that list were like, I've been in the same situation. And I was like,
And you would
had
never
I
know.
not known.
Yeah.
And it's just, there is comfort in numbers, regardless of what the subject is, right?
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
not that we want people to be going through these hard things to empathize with us.
But it's inevitable that people are going through hard things.
It's a human experience.
Yes, exactly. It's part of being human.
Yeah.
You know? Anyway.
Well, thank you so much for being just so
Yes.
open and vulnerable and willing.
I feel like I've healed to the point where I don't mind it. I kind of enjoy it. It gives me a little more meaning and purpose behind all that pain and everything that I've had to endure.
Yeah.
If I can help even one person navigate it or get through it or feel supported or loved through it, I'm going to do it because people are worth it.
They are.
As much as I'm like a grumpy curmudgeon person toward like a lot of society and people, I love individuals. I really do. Yeah. I don't think I would wish ill on anyone, even people who've mistreated me. All I want is for them to learn and do better. Yeah. That's what I really want.
What's that saying that's like, if you dislike someone, lean in?
Yeah.
It's hard for me, but
it's hard.
I don't ever usually regret it.
No, that's true. It's totally true.
Anyway. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't want to exhaust you too much. So
this is not exhausting.
Okay, good.
This is great. I love talking about this because I feel like I don't get enough opportunities to talk about this stuff with people. Because one, people are kind of uncomfortable and they don't know how to ask. They don't know how to approach the topic. They don't know what to say. And but honestly, I'm an open book, so I love talking about it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing too that I love so much about podcasting and like having these conversations is that people get to just be like a fly on the wall. And we can be as vulnerable or not. Yeah. And it's hopefully educational in one way. You know what I mean? Like you said, if it helps one person.
Yes.
It's definitely worth it.
Worth it. I would, and I don't know. I don't need to know who it helps necessarily. I just believe it will help someone at some point. So I don't know. Anyway.
Well, good. I'm so proud of you and
likewise.
Through it.
Likewise. Same. It's been a long journey and it's definitely not over yet. I still have all these hiccups along the way that I'm going through and I'm navigating it and I'm not perfect at it, but again, I'm living life and I'm enjoying it. Yeah. And that's a big deal for me.
And you're doing it authentically and it seems wholeheartedly. Yeah. And that's beautiful to see, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm an open book. If anybody wants to find me, reach
tell
out.
Us.
I'm mostly on Instagram. Okay, so for a while I was using Instagram and Facebook to like post like my family, like here's the, cool trip we went on. Here's our outdoor adventures. And then I like stopped doing that at one point because I was just done.
Yeah.
It's another task. And I was like, I just need a break. And that break has gone on for way too long. And so now I only post stories because they're not permanently on my posts because I want to catch up on all the
commitment.
Yeah. I keep wanting to catch up on everything for the last year because it has been almost a year now of the last actual post I did. Anyway, but you can find me on Instagram or social media. Actually just Instagram and Facebook mostly. Okay. I don't do Twitter or
I'll put the
TikTok.
handles in the description and people can
but
find you.
I'm all about new friends. I'm all about authentic relationships. I'm all about just supporting people, being human and supporting people being human. And just trying to be good and kind to others.
Well, because you know what? We're people before we're career people.
Yes.
And so the fact that the first thing everyone says is, what do you do? And
everyone I'm a human.
Goes to, I'm either this, or this. Instead of what are we talking about? Like, what, in the evenings, in the mornings? Like, I do a lot of things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, aside from working at Purple, I'm also a mom and a wife, and I paint, and I sew, and I, cry.
I feel it all.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm an open book, so if you ever want to ask me anything, to anyone watching, feel free to reach out to me. If you want to talk more about any of the issues that I had with the suicidal ideation or PTSD or trauma, any of that, I am here for that. Like, I am living life because I want to help people do that, like figure that out. So I'm here.
Well, thank you for being you.
Thank you.
Yeah.